I think that NASCAR will go back to high horsepower. And I don't think that this is just wishful thinking or me trying to be an optimist or anything like that. I think it's something that just will happen based on the way that all the factors around it are starting to slowly shape up. The problem is that at the moment, low horsepower is unpopular. It's unpopular with the drivers, unpopular in a lot of ways with the teams, and very unpopular with the race fans. And it also has been hurting the racing, especially at the short tracks and at the road courses, which this next-gen car was supposed to make the racing better at based on a lot of the designs. These races as well are races and tracks that would be high action oriented. There'd be a lot of beating and banging at these races back in the Gen 6 era with higher horsepower, as well as the COT era, Gen 4, and so on back. And NASCAR has been on this experimentation train since the late 90s of wanting to have lower horsepower, less horsepower, some reason to just make the cars not be unrestricted. And that's what they were through 2014. Through 2014, the cars were monsters, and by the end of that season, they were well over 900 horsepower, and both on TV and in person, it was a sight and also sound to be heard. The cars were loud, they were fast, they were everything you would think of with NASCAR. And even in testing, a lot of the drivers were pushing to have more horsepower. Maybe take away downforce while you're at it, have more racing in the driver's hands. But they went a different route. And from 2015 on through about 2018, it was 750 horsepower with a tapered spacer. This would take a bit of throttle control away from the drivers, but still, compared to the horsepower we have today, and definitely what was to come after it, 750 horsepower was still pretty high. And generally, the racing wasn't awful. 2015 wasn't that great of a season, but 2016 was, and there was still a lot of great finishes and great moments with this horsepower package, and it didn't really seem to affect a lot of the short tracks and road courses, which is a main concern nowadays. But then in 2019, we go to the famed and honestly hated 550 horsepower package. NASCAR's greatest and worst attempt to try and make just about every race over a mile a super speedway race. And yeah, sure, the restarts were pretty fun seeing the cars all together, but the problem was you couldn't do anything at these tracks. They were too small to be a true super speedway without completely demolishing the tracks themselves and making them a Frankenstein of what they currently were. And at the same time, they also were not able to have the banking, anything like that would help these drivers get away from each other, pass each other, anything like that. This was the first step towards what we now have as Atlanta Motor Speedway, which fans like, but that was specifically designed for pack racing. So a lot of times after you'd get this pack, you'd just have a spread out mess where drivers couldn't pass each other because there just was no difference between the cars unless it was a really underfunded car versus, say, a superpowered juggernaut. There were times that a guy who was 20th fastest on the day would maybe have some pit strategy and be able to stay up front. I think that one of the chief moments among these was when Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon stayed out front at Texas. They weren't great cars, they didn't dominate the day, but because there was so little wiggle room between the cars, they were able to stay ahead of much faster vehicles. And of course, 2020 at Kansas, the honestly death knell for this. It's why they went back for a while to a higher horsepower short track and road course package. And now you have the 670 horsepower package that's used with the next gen car. From 2022 on to what will be the current year, it honestly has been good at some tracks, bad at others. It seems to be perfect for intermediate tracks. It's that nice balance between what the high horsepower package was back in the day and what the 550 package was. And you still have a lot of good racing, but the short tracks and the road courses are bad, atrocious. Martinsville is one of the worst tracks on the schedule now, which, as someone who loves that track, is honestly hurting to say. NASCAR seems to be the dam in the river on all of this. They talk about cost effectiveness, saving money, all of that. But a lot of people say that that's just BS and there must be different reasons. They talk about lower horsepower to bring in OEMs, but the problem is they're still using the same engine package, more or less, that they've been using the last decade. A tapered spacer to make the horsepower lower. Yes, there are parts around it that are built for 670 horsepower instead of 800 or 900, but those parts can be made over time, and based on what people have said, it wouldn't be that much more expensive on them. So what's the opening here? Why do I think after all of this that NASCAR will be going back to high horsepower at some point, and maybe some point soon? Well, it's what members of Ford and Toyota have said. Doug Yates, who makes Ford engines, had said that he agreed with Tyler Reddick when Reddick said that over 1,000 horsepower would be needed with the current design of the next-gen car, and seemed to be pretty up for it. And David Wilson recently said, who is from Toyota by the way, that if more power is needed, Toyota's on board. And for a lot of people, Toyota is probably the reason why they went down to 750 horsepower from the 900 horsepower days of 2014, because Toyota couldn't build engines that would last or keep up with the other manufacturers. Well, they're now on board as well. This isn't saying they're going to go up to 1,000 horsepower necessarily, but that there could be some added horsepower to the car. The big opening with all of this, though, is that a hybrid engine is in the future. They've talked about it before. It's just an estimation now of when the hell it actually will come out. And the electrification component is estimated to add horsepower. How much? They don't know. Maybe 80, maybe 100, maybe 150 more horsepower than it is now. And members of NASCAR have also said that the next gen is designed for the future. Whatever they want to design into it, the next gen will be able to fit it in. And this kind of engine is what they're talking about. I think that is a huge reason why they're going to be able to make this happen. And how do I think it'll happen? Well, NASCAR, I think, with the OEMs, will shift up a bit of the current package. Maybe go back to 750 like it was before. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference at the road course and short track package. They're talking about the aerodynamic stuff more and more, but I think they'll do it in the way to maybe shut the fans up a little bit about this. But the end goal is going to be electrification. And I think that higher horsepower, which in a lot of ways will be maybe better throttle response and better racing, is the best way that NASCAR can get their fans on board for hybrid engines. NASCAR fans are not big fans of change. That's something we all know. And I think that, well, NASCAR knows this as well. And I think as well with this, you're going to see that if the racing's better, if it maybe sounds better, if anything about it is better, fans will be more inclined to jump on board, especially when you've dealt with now 2 going on 3 years of pretty abysmal short track and road course racing. Like I said, Martinsville is in the top 5 worst tracks right now, and it's sad to say because the track is a gem that should be one of the top 5 best every year. But that's all I think on it. I think it's going to happen. I'm positive about this. I'm really optimistic, but I want to know what you think. Do you think NASCAR will go up in horsepower, or is this just a pipe dream? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.